The Galactic Concord met in the heart of the Xylos Prime system, high above a world of glass spires and whispering winds. Their chamber floated in orbit, a great ring of polished alloy and shimmering energy shields, where delegates from 53 spacefaring species gathered every few months to argue, negotiate, and when necessary pass judgment. Most of them had been members for centuries, some for millennia. Humanity had only been invited 30 years ago, after they'd beaten back the Scorn Raiders without begging for help. Still, they sat near the back, quiet and watchful, like students in a classroom full of ancient professors. President Elias Vance watched the live feed from Earth. He sat in a dim room deep beneath Geneva, surrounded by advisors, generals, and intelligence officers. The air was cool and still, the only sound the soft hum of servers and the occasional tap of a keyboard. On the main screen, High Arbiter Cathar of the Volnari Collective rose from his crystalline seat. The Volnari were tall, with smooth gray skin that shimmered like oil on water and eyes like cold stars. They valued order above all else, and they despised unpredictability. And to them, humans were the most unpredictable thing in the galaxy. Cathar spoke in the common tongue, his voice sharp and precise. Honored members of the Concord, he began, we bring grave news. Over the past 6 cycles, 23 neutral vessels have been attacked along the Rimward corridor. Cargo ships, medical transports, even a school barge from the Lyra system, all struck without warning, without mercy. Survivors report black-hulled warships bearing the insignia of Sol Command. Their weapons' fire matches human plasma signatures. Their coms, though masked, carry human voice patterns. A murmur spread through the chamber. Many species turned toward the human delegation. Ambassador Li Chun sat perfectly still, her face calm, but her fingers tightened around the edge of her seat. Cathar continued. We have analyzed sensor logs, intercepted transmissions, and wreckage fragments. The evidence is overwhelming. Humanity has returned to its old ways, raiding, terrorizing, waging shadow wars under false flags. This is not the behavior of a civilized species. This is the mark of a people who dread battle, who seek it, revel in it, and cannot be trusted with peace. The phrase hung in the air like smoke, dread battle. It was an old galactic term, used only for species known to start wars for sport or instinct, like the Bloodfang clans of Andromeda or the extinct Lorax swarm. To label humanity with it was not just an accusation. It was a sentence. Before the human ambassador could speak, the vote was called. It passed with stunning speed. 52 in favor. 1 abstention, the silent Zinthari. 0 opposed. Humanity was now officially classified as a species of dread battle. Their fleets were ordered to stand down within 72 hours. All human colonies beyond the Sol system would be placed under Concord observation. Trade sanctions would begin immediately, and full membership in the Concord, something Earth had been working toward for decades, was revoked. Back in Geneva, the room was silent. General Rook slammed a fist on the table. It's a lie. We haven't lost a single ship in that sector. Our patrol logs are clean. Then, who's framing us? Asked Commander Nia Patel, head of Earth's Cyber Intel Division. Vance didn't answer right away. He stared at the screen, where Cathar was already being praised by other delegates. The Volnari hadn't just accused humanity, they'd isolated them. Made them a threat in the eyes of the galaxy. And the worst part? Most of the Concord believed it. They'd always seen humans as loud, emotional, too quick to fight. Now they had proof. Vance stood slowly. He was a tall man, with silver threading through his dark hair and eyes that had seen too many funerals. He'd led Earth through climate collapse, eye uprisings, and the Scorn War. He knew when to talk and when silence was the only honest reply. Shut it off, he said. The screen went dark. Outside, snow fell softly over Geneva. Christmas lights blinked on rooftops red, green, gold, unaware that humanity had just been branded a monster by the stars. In the days that followed, panic spread. Stock markets tumbled. Colonies near the Rimward Corridor went on high alert. Parents on Mars pulled their kids from schools that used Concord-certified AI tutors. Conspiracy theories exploded across the net. The Valnari want our water. The Krillax are behind this. Earth's government knew all along, but in the underground war room, Vance remained calm. Too calm. He ordered every human vessel, military, civilian, even private yachts with jump drives to transmit full diagnostic logs. He called in the Ghost Fleet, a secret squadron of stealth ships that hadn't been used since the Scawn War. He authorized deep penetration cyber probes into Valnari data streams, a move that could start a real war if caught. And he did one more thing. He called Ambassador Chen back to Earth. She arrived 2 days later, her face drawn with exhaustion. "They wouldn't let me speak, Elias," she said, dropping into a chair. Cathar cut me off before I could say objection. They wanted this. All of them. "Not all," Vance said, "but enough." He showed her the first piece of truth they'd uncovered, a fragment of encrypted data from a destroyed freighter near Proxima. Buried under layers of fake human comms was a signal pulse Valnari in origin, using a frequency reserved for their internal command network. Someone had gone to great lengths to make it look like humans did it. But the forgery wasn't perfect. The plasma residue on the wreckage? Close to human design, but not quite. The timing of the attacks? All happened during Valnari fleet exercises. Too convenient. This wasn't just about fear, Vance said quietly. It was about power. He'd learned something else, too. In 6 months, the Concord would vote on who controlled the helium-3 mines in the Kuiper Belt, the richest source of clean fusion fuel in human space. The Valnari needed that fuel. Their biology relied on it. And with humanity's growing influence, they'd likely lose the vote. Unless humanity was disgraced first. The pieces fit like a lock clicking shut. But Vance didn't go public. He didn't send angry messages or demand another hearing. That's what they expected. That's what would prove their point. The humans were hotheads, ruled by rage. So he did the last thing anyone predicted. He said nothing. He ordered all human ships back to Sol Space. He recalled every ambassador. He shut down Earth's Concord liaison office. And then, across every channel, every frequency, every diplomatic note, humanity went silent. No protests. No denials. No speeches. Just quiet. The galaxy took it as surrender. The news feeds declared, humans back down. The Valnari celebrated. Cathar gave a speech about the wisdom of unity and the danger of rogue species. But deep in Geneva, in a room lit only by the glow of star maps and data streams, Elias Vance stood before a wall of screens showing Valnari supply routes, patrol patterns, and hidden relay stations. His face was hard, his jaw set. The calm wasn't peace. It was the stillness before thunder. He remembered his grandfather, who'd survived the Jakarta floods, saying, "When a dog barks, throw it a bone. When a wolf growls, stand your ground. But when a lion stays quiet, run." Humanity wasn't a dog, wasn't a wolf, and the galaxy had just made a terrible mistake. They thought silence meant fear. They didn't understand it meant the rage was coming. In the weeks after humanity vanished from the galactic stage, Earth grew quieter but not calmer. Cities still hummed with traffic, schools taught, farms harvested, and children played under winter skies. Yet beneath the surface, a different kind of energy moved through the planet. Not panic, not fear, but focus. A deep, steady current of purpose that flowed from Geneva to Luna Base, from Mars Dome 7 to the orbital shipyards of Ceres. President Elias Vance had not spoken to the public since the Concorde's judgment. No press conferences, no emergency addresses. But his orders moved like lightning through the military, intelligence, and science branches of United Earth. Every human vessel down to the smallest scouting drone was recalled. Every log, every sensor record, every voice transmission from the past year was reviewed by teams working in shifts around the clock. They weren't looking for proof of innocence. They already knew they were clean. They were looking for the truth behind the lie. And they found it. Buried in corrupted data from a half-destroyed freighter near Epsilon Indi, Commander Patel's team uncovered a signal ghost, a faint echo of Valnari encryption layered beneath fake human comms. It was clever. Too clever. The attackers had used stolen human ship schematics, copied engine harmonics, even mimic pilot slang. But they'd made one mistake. They reused a Valnari command code during a fake distress call. It was like signing a forged letter with your real name. More evidence followed. A smuggler's log from the Rimward Fringe mentioned Valnari agents spying old human hulls, scrapped warships sold for scrap, now reborn as weapons of deception. Satellite feeds from neutral zones showed Valnari scouts shadowing human patrols, then vanishing just before attacks occurred. And then came the final piece, a black box recording from a medical transport that had barely escaped an ambush. The attackers spoke in near-perfect English, but their stress patterns, their pauses, their breathing rhythms didn't match human physiology. Valnari lungs worked differently. Their speech had a subtle, rhythmic pulse. It was there, hidden in the static. Vance listened to the recording 3 times. Then he said 2 words, "Show me." Within hours, a secure holorum deep beneath the Alps displayed a full reconstruction. Valnari operatives, wearing stolen human uniforms, boarding a fake human warship in a hidden asteroid bay. The operation was codenamed Iron Shroud. Its goal? To paint humanity as warmongers before the Kuiper Belt vote. The Valnari didn't just want resources. They wanted to break human influence before it grew too strong. Now Vance knew the full shape of the trap. But he still did not shout. He did not send the evidence to the Concorde. Why? Because he understood something the galaxy did not. Truth means nothing if no one believes you. And right now, the Concorde saw humans as emotional, rash, dangerous. If Earth cried, "Frame up," they'd be called desperate, paranoid, guilty. So, Vance chose a different path. He began to move in silence. He activated the Ghost Fleet, 12 ships built during the Skarn War, coated in radar-absorbing nanomesh, engines tuned to near-zero emission. They'd been mothballed for decades, considered too aggressive for peacetime. Now, they were perfect. He called in Colonel Mara Rios, commander of the 9th Orbital Ranger Specialists in zero-gravity boarding, cyber infiltration, and silent takedowns. She arrived in Geneva with her team, all of them lean, sharp-eyed, and calm as stone. Vance gave her one order: find their lies. Take them. Leave no trace of violence, only proof. Meanwhile, on Mars, engineers worked overtime modifying deep space comms drones. Not to send messages, but to replace them. They loaded the drones with data crystals containing the truth. Ship logs, voice analyzers, Valnari command codes, everything. Programmed to latch onto enemy relays and overwrite propaganda with facts. Back on Earth, public anger grew. Protests filled the streets of New Delhi, Nairobi, and Sao Paulo. We didn't do this. Read the signs. Concorde lied. But Vance did not address them. Instead, he visited a school in Reykjavik, not as president, but as a guest speaker. He told the children a story about wolves and sheep. Sometimes, he said, the wolf wears sheep's wool to scare the herd. But if you chase every shadow, you tire yourself out. The smart sheep wait, they watch, and when the wolf shows its fangs, they call the dogs. The kids didn't understand, but his advisors did. Then came the day Vance finally broke his public silence, not with a speech, but with action. From every human world, Earth, Luna, Titan, the Epsilon colonies, the last diplomatic ships lifted off and returned to Sol space. The human embassy on Xylos Prime was emptied. All communication relays to Concord channels went dark. Even Earth's public news feed stopped mentioning the Council. It was as if humanity had pulled a curtain around itself and stepped out of the galaxy story. The Concord took it as defeat. News outlets declared, "Humans retreat in shame." The Volnari held a victory ceremony. High Arbiter Cathar announced that order has been restored. But in the shadows, human ships moved like ghosts. Colonel Rios' team struck first near the Helios Rift, a remote stretch of space littered with debris and dead comets. A Volnari supply convoy, carrying weapons disguised as mining tools, floated along a quiet route. They never saw the Ghost Fleet coming. In under 20 minutes, all 3 ships were boarded. No shots fired, no lives lost. The Volnari crew were locked in their own holds. Every crate of illegal arms was tagged, scanned, and left in place. But on each hull, a small panel was opened and inside, a data chip was placed, glowing faintly blue. The chip contained full records of the convoy's real cargo, its true destination. A rebel base funded by Volnari credits, and intercepted orders from a Cathar-S inner circle. Then the human teams vanished. 2 days later, a neutral trader found the convoy adrift. Curious, he plugged into the chips. His eyes widened. He sent the data to every news outlet he knew. The story exploded. Volnari arming rebels using human ships as cover, screamed headlines across independent networks. The Concord scrambled to respond. Cathar called it a human trick, but doubt spread. The Krillax, a warrior species known for their honor, demanded an investigation. The Lyra, the same people whose school barge had been attacked, asked why the Volnari had been near their space that day. Vance watched it all from his office. Snow still fell outside, but spring was coming. He sipped black coffee and reviewed the next phase. This was only the beginning, because silence wasn't surrender, it was preparation, and humanity had just shown the galaxy how quietly they could strike. No bombs, no blood, just truth, delivered like a scalpel. Back in Geneva, Vance finally called a private meeting with his top commanders. "They thought we'd scream," he said. "So we stayed quiet. They thought we'd beg. So we walked away. Now they think we're broken. So we'll show them what broken really looks like." He pulled up a star chart. Dozens of red dots blinked. Volnari outposts, relay stations, listening posts. All of them holding secrets. "We don't need to win a war," he said. "We just need to make sure the truth wins." And with that, the second wave began. Not with fire, but with files, with facts, with undeniable proof, left like calling cards on the enemy's own doorstep. Across the stars, Volnari commanders started waking up to silent alarms. Their secure networks flickered. Their hidden logs changed. Messages they'd sent in secret now appeared on public channels. One by one, their lies were peeled back not by force, but by precision. And still, humanity said nothing. They didn't have to. The galaxy was starting to listen, because sometimes the loudest message is the one delivered in total silence. And President Vance knew, rage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits, and when it strikes with perfect clarity. The galaxy held its breath. For nearly a month after humanity vanished from Concord channels, nothing happened. No speeches, no fleet movements, no angry broadcasts. Earth, Mars, Titan, all human worlds seemed to drift into quiet isolation, like a wounded animal retreating to its den. Most species assumed the matter was closed. Humanity had been shamed, silenced, and sidelined. The Velnari celebrated. High Arbiter Cathar gave interviews about restoring galactic harmony. Even some human colonies began to whisper doubts. Maybe we did something wrong. Maybe we're not ready for the stars. But then, on a cold Tuesday in late March, everything changed without warning. A message appeared on every public frequency in human-controlled space. It was short, simple, and delivered in over 70 languages, including the guttural clicks of the Krillax and the melodic hums of the Lyra. You branded us monsters for crimes we did not commit. You judged without trial, condemned without truth. We do not seek war, but if you mistake restraint for weakness, then witness our answer. Then nothing else. No signature. No return address. Just silence. Across the galaxy, species froze. Traders paused mid-deal. Diplomats exchanged nervous glances. The message felt less like a threat and more like a promise. And promises from humans, the galaxy was learning, were not empty. 40-8 hours passed. Nothing happened. Many laughed. Bluff, said a Krillax warlord. Humans bark, but they don't bite. Then the first Velnari supply convoy disappeared. Not destroyed. Not attacked. Just gone. It reappeared 3 days later near the Helios Rift, floating peacefully, power systems intact. When a neutral salvage team boarded, they found the Velnari crew locked safely in their quarters, unharmed. But every weapon crate had been opened, scanned, and neatly relabeled with tags showing they were meant for rebel groups attacking human-friendly colonies. Worse, pinned to the bridge console like a badge of shame was a data crystal. It contained full logs proving the weapons had been disguised as mining tools, and that the shipment originated from a Velnari military depot, not a civilian warehouse. As claimed, the crystal also included audio of Velnari officers joking about letting the humans take the blame. The salvage team shared everything within hours. The story spread like fire. Before the Concorde could react, a second event struck. A Velnari listening post-orbiting Proxima Bazihert station used to spy on human communications suddenly went dark. When inspectors from the neutral Zentari arrived, they found the station perfectly functional. No damage, no signs of struggle. But every surveillance file on human fleet movements had been erased. In their place, hours of raw footage. Velnari commanders planning the fake raids, editing fake comms, even testing human voice mimics in soundproof rooms. The final clip showed Cathar himself saying, "Let them call us cruel. Let them fear us. As long as they doubt the humans, we control the vote." The galaxy reeled. This wasn't war. It was exposure. Surgical. Humiliating. And utterly undeniable. Still, humanity said nothing. They didn't claim credit. Didn't gloat. Didn't demand apologies. They simply let the truth stand on its own. But the strikes didn't stop. A week later, a Velnari data hub near the Ur cloud flickered offline for 6 minutes. When it came back, all classified files about Operation Iron Shroud were copied and sent directly to every major news outlet in neutral space. Journalists who'd once mocked human emotional outbursts now wrote front-page stories titled, "The Lies That Almost Broke the Concorde." The Krillax High Council demanded Cathar explain. The Lyra people whose school barge had been attacked sent a formal letter to Earth. "We believe you now." Back on Earth, life continued. Children went to school. Farmers planted crops. But in secret bunkers and orbital command centers, President Elias Vance watched the fallout with quiet satisfaction. He hadn't wanted revenge. He wanted accountability. And humanity was delivering it not with guns, but with proof. Then came the moment that shook the Concorde to its core. On the eve of a major trade summit, every delegate's personal datapad human. Velnari, Krillax, Zentari buzzed at the same time. A new file had appeared, No sender, no warning. Just the title. The Truth About Rimworld. Inside was a complete, time-stamped record of every fake raid. Ship movements, signal forgeries, Valnari command logs. Even financial trails, showing payments to pirate groups hired to pose as human raiders. It was so thorough, so clean, that even the most skeptical species had to admit humans were innocent. And the file ended with one line. We do not ask for forgiveness. We ask for fairness. That night, President Vance finally stepped into the public eye again, but not in a war room or a press hall. He stood in old Warsaw, on the rebuilt grounds of a park once reduced to ash during the resource wars. Behind him stood survivors of that era, now old, holding hands with children. He spoke without notes. His voice was calm, but it carried across millions of screens. You called us monsters, he said. You said we loved battle, but we remember what war truly costs. We buried our dead in silence. We rebuilt our cities with broken hands. We chose peace when we could have chosen fire. That is not weakness. That is strength you failed to see. He paused, looking not at the camera, but at the stars beyond. We showed you proof. Not to beg, not to threaten, but because truth matters. And if your peace is built on lies, then it was never peace at all. He turned and walked away. No applause, no music, just the wind in the trees. The next morning, something strange happened. A Krillax warship, once docked near Valnari, space-shifted course and moved closer to human territory. Not as an enemy, as a neighbor. Its captain sent a simple message. Your silence spoke louder than our cannons ever could. Then the Quartan Synod, a group of ancient scholars who rarely involved themselves in politics, released a public statement. Humanity has acted with honor, precision, and restraint. They have not sought to destroy, but to reveal. This is the mark of a mature civilization, not a species of dread battle. Even the Zenthari, silent observers for 10,000 years, issued a rare judgment. The Valnari have violated the prime accords of honest discourse. Investigation is required. Cathar, once proud and unshakable, now looked pale and tired in public appearances. His speeches grew defensive. This is human deception, he insisted. But few listened, because the evidence was everywhere. And humanity still hadn't fired a single shot. President Vance returned to Geneva. In his office, a small screen showed the Unstratnata new flagship, just launched in secret, slipping past the orbit of Neptune. Its mission wasn't war. It was presence. A reminder. On Earth, people began to hope again. Not because they'd won a fight, but because they'd proven who they were. They were not monsters. They were not warmongers. They were humans flawed. Fierce and fiercely honest when it mattered most. And if the galaxy had needed proof of that, well, they just received it. Not with rage, but with absolute clarity. And somewhere, deep in Valnari space, High Arbiter Cathar stared at a blank screen, wondering how a species that spoke so softly could shake the stars so loudly. The answer was simple, because when humans finally chose to act, they didn't just fight. They made sure the truth won. The Galactic Concord had never moved this fast. For centuries, its decisions crawled like glaciers, debated for months, reviewed for years, revised until meaning bled out of them. But now, with Valnari lies exposed across neutral news feeds and proof piling up like storm clouds, the Council called an emergency session. Not in 6 cycles. Not in 6 days. In 6 hours. President Elias Vance received a notice while walking through a quiet garden in Geneva. Cherry blossoms drifted down around him, pink and soft against the gray stone paths. His aide handed him a datapad. He read the message once, then tucked it into his coat without a word. He knew this moment would come. The Concord wasn't summoning humanity to apologize. They were summoning them to witness to watch as the galaxy tried to fix the mess it had made. And Vance would not refuse. But he would not go begging either. He chose to go alone. No generals. No diplomats. No team of lawyers. Just him in a plain black suit, stepping onto a shuttle bound for Xylos Prime. As the ship climbed through Earth's atmosphere, he looked down at the blue curve of his home. Cities glowed like scattered embers. Oceans shimmered under sunlight. This world had survived fire, flood, and folly. It would survive this too. When he arrived at the Concord Spire, the chamber was already full. Delegates from 53 species sat in their usual places, but the air felt different, tense, shameful. Many would not meet his eyes. Ambassador Li Chun stood near the human seat, her expression unreadable, but she gave him a small nod. He nodded back. High Arbiter Cathar sat rigid in his crystalline chair, his gray skin dulled, his star-like eyes darting nervously. He looked smaller now. Not less powerful, just less certain. The session began not with Cathar, but with Elder Mazala of the Zentari. The ancient beings rarely spoke, but when they did, the galaxy listened. Mazala's voice was like wind through stone. "We have reviewed the evidence," she said, her many eyes fixed on the chamber. "It is complete. It is consistent. It is true. The attacks on the Rimward Corridor were not carried out by humans. They were planned, funded, and executed by agents of the Valneri Collective under direct orders from their high command." A low murmur spread through the room. Some species looked stunned, others angry. A few, like the Krillax warlord, Tharn leaned forward with grim satisfaction. The Concord, Mansala continued, acted without full knowledge. "We judged based on false reports. This is a failure of our duty, and for that, we offer no excuses, only correction." Then she turned to Vance. "President Vance, humanity was wronged. Your people were slandered. Your honor was questioned without cause. The Zentari moved to restore your full standing in this council, lift all sanctions, and grant Earth permanent veto power on matters affecting Sol territories." Silence. Vance did not smile. He did not bow. He simply stood and walked to the center of the chamber, the same place where Cathar had accused humanity weeks before. "I thank the Zentari for their honesty," he said, his voice calm but clear. "But restoration is not enough. Words are not enough. What happened here was not a mistake. It was a choice. Someone chose to lie. Someone chose to frame us. Someone chose to use fear to steal what they could not win fairly." He turned slowly, his gaze sweeping the room. "We do not ask for revenge, but we do ask for justice. Full exoneration. Return of all seized assets. Public acknowledgement of the truth. And a permanent seat with equal voice, not as guests, but as partners." He paused. "And one more thing. The Valneri must answer for what they did." Cathar shot to his feet. "This is outrageous. You cannot demand." "I'm not demanding," Vance interrupted, his voice still quiet. "I'm stating facts. You lied. You broke the Concord's own laws. And if this council means anything, you will face consequences." Before Cathar could respond, the Krillax warlord stood. "The Krillax support Earth's terms," Tharn rumbled. "We do not like liars, especially those who hide behind rules while breaking them." Then the Lyra delegate rose. "We lost children in those fake attacks. We believed the lies. Now we know the truth. We stand with humanity." One by one, species began to stand, not all, but enough. The Quartan Synod, the Helix merchants, even the cautious Ulan Hive, who rarely took sides, gave a soft chime of agreement. Cathar looked around, desperate. "This is mob justice. You are letting emotion rule. No, Vance said. We are letting truth rule. There's a difference. The vote was called. This time, it was not quick. Not easy. Arguments flared. Old alliances cracked. But in the end, the motion passed. 41 in favor, 9 opposed, 3 abstained. Humanity was not just cleared, they were elevated. Full membership restored. Sanctions lifted. And yes, a permanent veto on Sol-related matters. Cathar was stripped of his authority over security matters. A neutral task force would investigate the Valmari High Command. And within a month, a formal apology would be broadcast to every human world. As the session ended, delegates filed out slowly. Many approached Vance. Some offered formal bows. Others simply said, "Well done." The Krillax warlord clapped him on the shoulder gently for being twice his size and said, "You fight with your mind first." That is rare and strong. Vance accepted their words with quiet grace. But he did not celebrate back on his shuttle as it arced away from Xylos Prime. He looked out at the stars not with triumph, but with warning. This victory was fragile. The galaxy had seen humanity's restraint, its precision, its refusal to burn the world to prove a point. But respect, once gained, must be kept. He opened a secure channel to Earth. "Tell the colonies," he said, "the Concord has seen the truth. But we do not need their permission to be who we are. We are not good because they say so. We are good because we choose to be." On Mars, engineers paused work on defense grids. On Titan, teachers played the Concord session for students. In slums and skyscrapers across Earth, people wept, not from sadness, but from pride. They had not screamed. They had not broken. They had held fast to truth, and the universe had bent toward it. Later that night, Vance stood again in the garden in Geneva. The cherry blossoms had mostly fallen, leaving green buds behind. Spring was winning. His aide approached. "They're calling you the quiet lion on the net," she said with a small smile. He shook his head. "I'm just a man who refused to let lies stand." "But you could have gone to war," she said. "You had the ships, the support, the rage." "Yes," he said. "But war solves nothing. Only truth lasts." He looked up at the sky, where Earth's orbital defenses gleamed like silver threads against the dark. "The galaxy needed to see that we don't rage without reason," he said softly. "But when we do act, when we finally speak, it's because silence would be a greater sin." And in that moment, far above, the UNSS Dreadnought completed its first full orbit around Solnod as a weapon. But as a promise, humanity was not here to conquer, but they would not be. Erased. Not by lies. Not by fear. Not by anything. And the stars, for the first time in a long time, watched humanity not with suspicion, but with something close to awe. The Concord chamber hummed with a new kind of energy. Not the cold buzz of judgment or the stiff air of protocol, but something quieter, something like respect. Delegates arrived earlier than usual, speaking in low tones, glancing toward the human seat, not with suspicion, but with curiosity. Some even brought gifts: a Krillax honor stone, a Lyra memory blossom, a data scroll from the Quarton inscribed with ancient proverbs about truth and patience. They were not bribes. They were acknowledgments. President Elias Vance entered alone, as before. He wore the same dark suit, but this time, a small pin rested on his lapel, a simple silver earth, rimmed in blue. It had been made by schoolchildren in Nairobi. He touched it once before taking his seat. Today was not another trial. It was a reckoning turned into renewal. High Arbiter Cathar did not speak first. In fact, he sat in silence, his head slightly bowed. The Volnari had been stripped of 3 key council votes. Their military operations were under review. and their bid for the Kuiper Belt Helium-3 rights had been suspended indefinitely. The shame was not loud, but it was deep carved into every line of Cathar's gray face. Elder Mazala of the Zentari rose again, her many eyes glinting like distant stars. Today, she began, we do not gather to accuse. We gather to restore. The truth has been seen. The balance must be mended. She turned to Vance. President Vance, the Concord offers full and public exoneration of humanity. All sanctions are lifted. All human colonies are free from oversight. And Earth is granted a permanent seat with equal voice, equal vote, and the right to veto any action affecting soul space. A murmur of approval rippled through the chamber. Then she added, but words are air without action. Therefore, the Concord will broadcast this declaration to every known world. And we will fund the rebuilding of any human outposts harmed by the false panic. Though no human ship was ever lost, the fear itself caused damage. We will pay that cost. Vance stood slowly. He did not smile, but his eyes were softer than before. I accept the Concord's correction, he said. Not because I need your approval, but because peace only works when everyone believes in it. He reached into his coat and placed a small data crystal on the central table, the same kind his ghost fleet had left on Vilnari. Hulse, this contains everything, he said. Every log, every recording, every line of code. It's all here. Not to shame you further, but so you never forget how easily lies can poison trust. He looked around the room. We are not saints. Humans have made mistakes. We fought wars we shouldn't have. We've lost our way. But we learn. We change. And when someone tries to paint us as monsters, we show them who we really are, not with fire, but with facts. He paused. And if you ever doubt us again, don't guess, ask. Then he did something no one expected. He walked over to Cathar's seat. The Vilnari flinched, as if expecting a blow. But Vance only held out a hand, not to shake, but to offer a small device. It was a translator, tuned to human speech patterns. This will help you understand us better, Vance said quietly. Not just our words, our pauses, our silence. Because silence, High Arbiter, is not emptiness. It is often the loudest part of the truth. Cathar stared at the device. After a long moment, he took it. He did not thank Vance, but he did not refuse it either. The session ended not with cheers, but with a slow, rising wave of nods species after species, giving silent assent. The Krillax warlord gave a single, deep bow. The Lyra sang a short harmony of peace. Even the Ulan hive pulsed with warm light dot as Vance left the chamber. Delegates fell in beside him, not crowding, just walking with him as equals. Outside the spire, the view was breathtaking. Stars stretched in every direction, cold and endless. But here, in this fragile ring of metal and light, something new had been built. Not just peace, but partnership. Back on Earth, people watched the broadcast in homes, schools, factories, and farms. There were no riots, no wild celebrations, just quiet relief and pride. A teacher in Jakarta turned to her class and said, "Today, the galaxy saw us not as threats, but as neighbors." A miner on Ceres tapped his helmet against a comrade's in silent salute. On Mars, children raised small blue and white flags not of victory, but of belonging. Later that evening, Vance stood on an observation deck above Geneva. The city glittered below, peaceful under a winter moon. His aide joined him, holding 2 cups of coffee. "They're calling this the quiet victory," she said. Vance took a sip. "Victory isn't the right word. We didn't defeat anyone. We just refused to let a lie become truth." She smiled. "Still, they'll remember this. For centuries." "Good," he said. Let them remember that humanity doesn't rage without reason, but when we do act, we do it with purpose. Far above, in high orbit, the UNSS Dreadnought powered its engines for the first time on a peaceful mission. It would carry the Concorde's apology to every human colony, along with new trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. Its hull bore no weapons today, only the words etched in every human language, as promised. We were forgiven nothing. We earned everything. And that was the heart of it. Humanity had not been handed dignity. They had claimed it by staying calm in chaos, by choosing truth over vengeance, by proving that strength isn't in how loud you shout, but in how clearly you stand. In the weeks that followed, things changed slowly but deeply. Valnari trade ships began docking at human ports again, this time under neutral observers. Krillax warriors trained alongside Earth Marines in joint drills, not as enemies, but as allies learning each other's rhythms. The Lyra sent artists to collaborate with human musicians. Even the Zenthari, ancient and distant, opened a small embassy on Luna to study the species that speaks loudest in silence. They said President Vance never gave another grand speech. He returned to his office, signed bills, met with farmers, visited hospitals. He was just a man again. But the galaxy would never see him or humanity the same way, because they had learned a hard lesson. Humans don't start wars for fun. They don't crave battle. But when pushed, when lied about, when tested, they do not break. They respond, not with blind fury, but with absolute clarity, not with destruction, but with undeniable truth. And in the end, that was more terrifying than any fleet. The stars no longer whispered, "Dread battle," when they heard the name of Earth. Now, they whispered something else. Respect. And somewhere, in a quiet garden under falling cherry blossoms, a man who had carried the weight of his species, Honor finally allowed himself to breathe. The rage had passed, but the legacy remained. Humanity had not just survived the galaxy's judgment, they had reshaped it, and the universe, for the first time, looked at them and understood.